He looked away, his eyes glistening. "Thank you," he whispered. "I didn't think anyone noticed." Emma smiled softly. "I noticed more than you think." The days turned into weeks, and something in the house began to change. The laughter came back. The silence felt peaceful instead of sad. Liam started talking more about his college plans, his music, and even small dreams he had for the future. Emma could see him rebuilding himself piece by piece. One afternoon, she found a note on the fridge in Liam's handwriting. "Made lunch for you. Don't work too hard." It made her laugh out loud. It was a simple gesture, but it told her that the wall between them was finally crumbling. Later that day, they were in the living room, sorting old photo albums. Liam found one of his mom holding him when he was little. He stared at it for a while, quiet. Emma waited, giving him space. "She used to sing to me," he said finally. "Every night. Same song. I can't remember the words anymore." Emma thought for a moment, then said, "Maybe you can write new ones." He blinked. "New ones?" "Yes. Something that feels like her, even if it's different." That night, Liam stayed up late, his guitar echoing softly through the walls. Emma didn't interrupt. She knew something beautiful was being born out of pain. The next morning, he came to her with a small folded piece of paper. "I wrote something," he said, his voice a mix of pride and nervousness. She read the lyrics quietly. They were simple and tender, a song about loss, love, and learning to breathe again. When she finished, her eyes were wet. "It's beautiful, Liam," she said. "She'd be proud of you." He looked down, smiling faintly. "Thanks. I couldn't have done it without you." The words hit her softly. She felt something warm stir inside her, a mixture of pride, affection, and a strange ache she didn't quite understand. Over time, their bond deepened, not in a romantic way, but in a deeply emotional one. It was like two lonely souls who had found comfort in each other's company. Emma never tried to replace his mother, and Liam never treated her like just his father's wife. They became something else, something harder to define but easy to feel. One evening, while they were cleaning up after dinner, Liam said quietly, "You've changed this house, you know. It doesn't feel so empty anymore." Emma smiled, her voice soft. "That's because you've started letting light in again." He looked at her, eyes bright, and said, "You did that." For a moment, they just stood there. Two people who had both been broken in different ways but had somehow helped each other heal. The air was thick with emotion, unspoken and pure. That night, as Emma lay in bed, she thought about how far they'd come. She wasn't just helping him anymore, he was helping her too. The house didn't feel lonely, and her heart didn't feel heavy. For the first time in years, there was peace. But deep down, she knew something else was forming. Something fragile, born out of comfort and care. It wasn't love as people defined it, but something softer, quieter, and just as powerful. And though neither of them spoke it aloud, both Emma and Liam knew that their lives had changed forever. The months passed quietly, and the house that once felt like a museum of silence now carried life again. Emma noticed how different Liam had become. His laughter was more natural, his eyes brighter, and his music no longer sounded like sadness. It carried warmth, hope, and something that felt almost peaceful. She was proud of him, though she never said it too often. Sometimes she'd just stand at the door and listen to him play, smiling softly, feeling thankful that he was finding himself again. Liam, too, noticed the change in her. Emma wasn't just a kind woman anymore. She was part of his life in a way he couldn't explain. When she walked into a room, the air felt lighter. When she smiled, the house felt warmer. He had never really told her how much she meant to him. But he tried to show it in small ways, helping her with groceries, fixing small things around the house, or leaving her coffee ready in the morning before she woke up. One rainy evening, the sky turned dark early and thunder rolled in the distance. Daniel was still away for work, and Emma sat by the fireplace reading a book. Liam came down with his guitar, shyly asking, "Mind if I play here?" She smiled. "Of course not. I'd like that." He sat across from her, strumming softly while the rain hit the windows. The sound filled the living room with calm. Emma closed her book and just listened. When he finished, she clapped lightly, laughing. "You've gotten so good, Liam. I can't believe it's the same boy who was scared to play in front of anyone." He laughed too, shaking his head. "That's because you believed in me when I didn't." Her eyes softened. "You did the work yourself. I just reminded you that you could." The conversation lingered in the air. There was comfort there, and something deeper that neither wanted to name. Then, suddenly, the power went out. The house fell into darkness except for the soft orange glow of the fireplace. Emma grabbed a candle and walked toward the window, looking out at the storm. "Looks like we're stuck with candlelight tonight," she said, smiling. Liam chuckled, lighting another candle for her. "At least it's cozy." They sat on the floor near the fireplace, sharing stories about their pasts. Emma talked about how she used to dream of painting but never found the time. Liam spoke about how he wanted to travel one day to see the world his mom used to talk about. Their words flowed easily, the storm outside making the house feel small and safe. Then, for a pause, Liam said quietly, "Sometimes I still feel like she's here. When I play or when it rains like this." Emma nodded. "Maybe she is, in some way. Love doesn't disappear. It just changes where it lives." He looked at her then, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "You sound like her sometimes. Not in your voice, but in how you care. It's strange, but comforting." Emma felt her heart skip. She smiled softly, unsure what to say. "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." They sat in silence for a moment, both feeling something shift quietly between them. It wasn't attraction in the wrong sense. It was something human, deep, and full of emotion. They had become each other's shelter in different storms. And that connection was powerful. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but something lingered in Emma's chest. A warmth mixed with worry. She knew she was growing too close. Not in a way that crossed lines, but in a way that made her heart ache when he smiled. It scared her, but she couldn't pull away. She cared too deeply. Days passed. And she started to notice how often Liam's eyes followed her softly, quietly. Not in desire, but with gratitude. He had found peace through her, and she through him. They shared dinners, worked in the garden, and sometimes spent quiet evenings just listening to music together. It became their little routine, something that made the world outside feel distant. One afternoon, while folding laundry, Emma found an envelope in the basket with her name written on it. She opened it and saw a note inside. "Emma, I never said thank you properly. You came into my life when I thought it was over. You didn't replace anyone. You gave me something new to hold on to. I hope one day I can be as strong and kind as you." Her hands trembled as she read it. It was such a simple message, but it touched something deep inside her. She sat quietly for a long time, tears filling her eyes. He didn't know it, but he had healed her too. That evening, when Liam came home from his class, she smiled and handed him his favorite tea. "Thank you for the note," she said softly. He blushed. "You weren't supposed to find that yet." "Well, I did," she replied, "and it meant a lot to me." They looked at each other for a long moment, neither speaking. It was a look full of respect, care, and something tender that words couldn't define. Weeks later, autumn came. The trees outside turned golden red, and the air smelled of rain and wood smoke. Emma and Liam often took evening walks, talking about small things: college, books, music, dreams. One evening, as they walked under the fading light, said, "You know, before you came, I thought I'd never laugh again. But now I feel like I can breathe." Emma's heart softened. "That means everything to me, Liam. You've come a long way." He looked at her with a small smile. "You help me see life differently." The words hung between them, gentle but full of meaning. Emma smiled but didn't answer. She didn't want to make it heavy. But when they returned home, she stayed up late, thinking about how strange life could be, how two broken souls could end up helping each other heal. That night, she dreamed of her past and of the boy who had brought warmth back into her life without even trying. When she woke up, she realized something: love wasn't always romantic. Sometimes it was simply about showing up for someone who needed you. Still, Deep down, a part of her knew this connection had changed them both forever. They couldn't stay in this moment forever. One day, he would move forward, build his own life, and she would have to let go. But for now, she was grateful for the peace they had built together. As the days grew shorter and winter drew near, the nights became quieter again. But the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. It carried laughter, memories, and the sound of a guitar that no longer cried but sang. Emma had never thought her second marriage would be this quiet. After years of living alone, she married Daniel, a kind man with a calm heart and a quiet home in Oregon. His son Liam had just turned 18, a tall, reserved boy with soft eyes that carried too many unspoken things. He was polite, respectful, and distant like someone living behind a glass wall. Emma could tell that he was still grieving his mother's death, even if no one talked about it anymore. Daniel often worked late and the house felt too big, too still. Emma tried to fill it with warmth, fresh flowers, home-cooked meals. Soft music, but nothing seemed to reach Liam. He ate quietly, excused himself early, and disappeared into his room. Sometimes Emma would hear the faint sound of a guitar from behind his door. The same few chords played again and again, like someone trying to remember a feeling they had forgotten. One chilly evening, Emma came home early from work. The rain had stopped and the house was wrapped in silence. She set her bag down, called out for Daniel, but there was no answer. Then she heard the sound's soft, trembling strings coming from Liam's room upstairs. The melody was slow and sad, echoing faintly through the hallway. She smiled faintly. At least he was playing again. Maybe he was finally opening up. She walked closer, meaning only to knock and tell him dinner would be ready soon. But as she reached the half-open door, she paused. Liam sat on the edge of his bed, his guitar in his hands. But he wasn't just playing, he was crying. His shoulders shook and his fingers slipped over the strings. The sound was broken, filled with pain. A small picture frame sat beside him, his mother, smiling. He was trying to play her favorite song but couldn't finish it. The emotion was too heavy. Emma froze in the doorway. It wasn't the kind of scene you interrupted. It was private, raw. For a moment, she thought about walking away quietly, pretending she hadn't seen anything. But her heart wouldn't let her. This boy wasn't just Daniel's son anymore. He was a young man drowning quietly right in front of her. "Liam," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, startled, quickly wiping his tears with his sleeve. "Emma, hey, I was just practicing." His voice cracked at the end, trying to sound casual, but his red eyes gave everything away. Emma stepped inside slowly, not wanting to scare him. "That's a beautiful song," she said gently. "Did your mom like it?" He looked down at the guitar, his jaw tightening. "It was her favorite. I've been trying to play it right, but I can't." She nodded, her heart heavy. "Maybe it's not about playing it right," she said quietly. "Maybe it's about remembering her." For a few seconds, he didn't say anything. Then he gave a weak laugh, the kind people make when they're too tired to cry again. "I don't even remember her voice anymore. Isn't that crazy?" Emma sat down on the chair across from him. "No, Liam, that's not crazy. That's just what time does. But she's still here in the way you play, in the way you care." He looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time she saw how young he still was beneath all that silence. A boy who'd been trying to be a man too soon. Emma wanted to comfort him, but she didn't want to cross any lines. She just smiled gently and said, "You don't have to carry all of it alone, you know." He nodded, his fingers tightening on the guitar. "Yeah, I just don't want Dad to see me like this." She understood that too well. "Then let's keep this between us," she said softly. "But promise me something you'll keep playing." He looked at her with a small, uncertain smile. "You really think I should?" "I do," she said. "It's how you talk to her. Maybe it's how she talks back." The moment lingered, quiet, fragile, full of understanding. Emma could feel the air shift between them, not in a romantic way, but in something more delicate. Trust, the kind of trust that doesn't come from words, but from simply being there when someone needs you. She stood to leave, not wanting to make it awkward. Dinner will be ready soon, she said, giving him a small nod before walking out. But as she closed the door, she heard the guitar again this time, steady, clear, and calm. The song flowed gently through the hallway, and Emma smiled to herself. He was trying again. That night, as she lay in bed beside Daniel, she couldn't stop thinking about Liam. Not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in the way a heart thinks about someone it wants to protect. She had seen too many broken people shut down forever after losing someone they loved. She didn't want that to happen to him. The next morning when Daniel left for work, Emma stood by the kitchen window, sipping her coffee, thinking about the night before. She thought about how lonely Liam must have been, how strong he tried to appear. She remembered his cracked voice, his trembling hands, and his quiet apology for being caught crying. It made her heart ache. From that moment, she made a quiet promise to herself she would help Liam heal. Not by talking about pain all the time, but by giving him reasons to feel again. Maybe through music. Maybe through kindness. Or maybe just by being there, steady and patient. That afternoon, she bought a small music notebook and left it on his desk with a note that said, "Write down your favorite songs. Maybe we can play them together sometime." She didn't sign it, but she knew he'd know who it was from. Later that evening, as she passed by his room again, she noticed something small but meaningful. The notebook was open, and a few song titles were written inside. Emma smiled quietly. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Healing was never quick or simple, but sometimes all it took was one person deciding not to walk away when things got heavy. That night, for the first time since she'd moved into that house, Emma felt it wasn't so quiet anymore. The music was faint. The laughter was still missing, but there was a heartbeat in the air again. Something real. She knew it was only the beginning, but it was enough to give her hope. And somewhere upstairs, a young man strummed his guitar softly, knowing someone finally heard him. The morning light came through the kitchen window, painting the counter in gold. Emma stood there making pancakes, her mind still on last night. The sound of Liam's guitar had stayed with her, soft and full of something new hope. She had seen him break, but she had also seen him try again, and that meant something was changing. When Liam walked into the kitchen, still sleepy, she smiled warmly. "Good morning. Pancakes today. Hope you're hungry." He hesitated, rubbing his eyes. "Smells good," he said quietly. It was a small thing, but to Emma it felt like progress. They sat together for the first time in weeks. At first, silence filled the space between them. Then Emma started talking not about serious things, just simple ones. Her job at the library. The strange man who always came in asking for books about UFOs. The dog next door that barked at its own reflection. Slowly she saw him relax, a shy grin appearing every now and then. After breakfast, as he started to clear his plate, she said, "You can leave it. I've got it." But Liam shook his head. "No, it's okay. I should help." That one word help was enough to make her smile. He was opening up, step by step. Over the next few days, Emma made little efforts to pull him out of his shell. She asked about his music, helped him organize his room, and sometimes left short notes of encouragement near his guitar. Nothing too much, just quiet gestures to remind him that he mattered. One afternoon, she found him sitting outside on the porch, trying to fix one of the guitar strings that had snapped. She brought him a glass of lemonade and sat beside him. "You're getting better," she said. He looked up, squinting in the sunlight. "You really think so?" "I know so. You sound more like yourself every day." Liam looked down at the guitar again. "Sometimes I think she'd be proud of me. But then I remember how much she used to do for me. And I realize I never told her enough. I just miss her." Emma listened, her chest tightening. "You don't have to feel guilty for missing her," she said softly. "That's love, Liam. It never goes away, just changes shape." He nodded slowly, as if her words filled a space inside him he didn't know was empty. Later that week, Emma noticed that he started joining her more often. He'd help with dinner, water the plants, or just sit nearby while she read. He didn't say much, but she could feel him reaching out in quiet ways. One evening, Daniel had to leave for a business trip, and it was just Emma and Liam in the house. The silence that used to feel heavy now felt calm. They ordered pizza, watched an old comedy, and laughed more than they had in months. When the movie ended, Emma noticed Liam watching her, as if he was trying to figure something out. "Why are you doing all this for me?" he asked suddenly. "You didn't have to. You could have just ignored me." She looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because you remind me of who I used to be," she said. "After my first husband passed away, I thought I'd never feel normal again. Then one day someone just sat with me. Didn't say much, just listened. It made everything a little lighter. I'm just doing the same for you." Emma often stood by the window at night listening to him play in his room. Sometimes he'd play the song he had written for his mother. And sometimes something new, songs filled with hope and the sound of healing. Each note reminded her that she had done something right. She hadn't just been his stepmother. She had been his friend, his guide, and, in a quiet way, the person who helped him find his heart again. And though neither of them said it out loud, both Emma and Liam knew what they shared would stay with them for life. It was something pure, something born from kindness and courage, not desire. It was the kind of bond that time couldn't erase, the kind that made two lonely hearts whole again. Winter had come quietly, covering this small Oregon town in soft snow. The world felt slower, gentler. Emma loved the way the mornings looked: white rooftops, silent streets, and the faint scent of coffee drifting through the house. But even with the beauty of it all, she knew something inside her was changing. So was Liam. He had grown in ways she couldn't have imagined when they first met. He laughed more, spoke with confidence, and carried a peace that had once seemed impossible. He wasn't the quiet, grieving boy anymore. He was becoming a man stronger, wiser, and ready for the world. One morning, Emma found an envelope on the kitchen counter. Her name was written on it in Liam's neat handwriting. She opened it slowly, her heart already tightening as she read. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot lately about everything you've done for me, about how far I've come because you believed in me when I couldn't. You helped me heal, and I'll never forget that. But I think it's time for me to find who I am on my own. I've been accepted into a music program out of state. I'm leaving next week. This isn't goodbye, it's just the next step. Thank you for helping me find my way back." Emma held the letter close to her chest, her eyes filling with tears. She had known this day would come, but knowing didn't make it easier. She was proud, so proud, but her heart ached. The house would be quiet again, and this time it would be a different kind of silence. That evening, when Liam came home, she didn't bring up the letter right away. They had dinner like always, laughing over something small, and afterward, as he helped her wash the dishes, she finally said, "So, music school, huh?" He looked down, shyly smiling. "You read it?" "I did," she said softly. "You didn't think you could keep that from me, did you?" He chuckled. "Guess not." There was a short pause before she added, "I'm proud of you, Liam. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. You're moving forward." His voice grew quiet. "It feels weird, though, leaving this house. Leaving you." Emma wiped her hands and turned to him. "That's what growing up feels like. It's supposed to feel strange and sad and beautiful all at once." He nodded, his expression serious. "You know, I wouldn't be here without you." She smiled through the ache in her chest. "You would have found your way eventually. Maybe not the same way, but you would have." He shook his head. "No, you changed everything. You gave me hope again." Those words hit her harder than she expected. She looked at him, this young man she had watched rebuild himself piece by piece, and realized that he had done the same for her. He had reminded her what it meant to care, to be alive, to believe that broken hearts could still love again. The week before he left went by too fast. Emma helped him pack, though every folded shirt felt like a goodbye. They visited his mother's grave together one cold afternoon. Liam brought his guitar and played the song he'd written for her. Emma stood beside him, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. The melody wasn't sad anymore, it was full of gratitude. A song of love and release. When he finished, he said softly, "She'd like you, Emma. I know she would." Emma smiled through her tears. I'd like to think she does. The day of his departure arrived with clear skies. The taxi waited outside as snowflakes drifted down slowly. Emma stood by the door while Liam carried out his bag. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he turned and hugged her tightly. It wasn't a quick hug. It was long, full of meaning. Take care of yourself, he said quietly. You too, she whispered, and call me when you get there. He nodded, smiling faintly. I will. When the car finally pulled away, Emma stood there long after it disappeared down the snowy road. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was peaceful. It's like the ending of a beautiful chapter. In the weeks that followed, Emma went back to her normal routine. She read more, painted again, and took long walks by the river. But every time she saw her phone light up with Liam's messages, pictures of his new dorm, his friends, his guitar, she felt warmth in her heart. He was doing well. He was living. That was all she had ever wanted. One evening, months later, Emma came home to find a package on her porch. Inside was a CD and a handwritten note. Emma, this is my first recorded song. It's called Home Again. I wrote it for you, for everything you did for me. Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't always have to be loud. It can be quiet, patient, and strong. Liam, she put the CD in the player and sat on the couch as the music began. His voice was deep and calm, full of emotion. The song spoke about healing, about finding light in unexpected places, about someone who saved you simply by being there. Emma closed her eyes as the melody filled the room. For the first time in a long while, she let herself cry not from sadness, but from gratitude. She realized then that love comes in many forms. Sometimes it's romantic, sometimes it's friendship, and sometimes it's simply the act of helping another soul stand again. What she and Liam had shared wasn't something that needed labels. It was pure, honest, and real. As the song ended, she whispered to the empty room, "You did it, Liam. You found your way." Years later, Emma attended one of his concerts. The hall was full, his name on the marquee glowing bright. When he walked onto the stage and began to play, she felt tears rise again, not because she missed him, but because she was proud beyond words. In the middle of the show, he paused and spoke to the audience. "This next song," he said, "is for someone who taught me that family isn't always about blood. It's about who stands beside you when you need them most." Emma smiled from the crowd, her heart full. He began to play the same song, Home Again. When the concert ended, he found her backstage. "You came," he said, grinning. "Of course I did," she said, hugging him tightly. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As they stood there, the years seemed to melt away. They were no longer stepmother and stepson in pain. They were two people whose hearts had found peace through kindness. When she drove home that night, the stars above were bright, the same ones she used to watch from her porch during those lonely years. But she wasn't lonely anymore. She carried his music, his laughter, and the quiet joy of knowing she had helped someone find their light again. Love, she thought, isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go on, being thankful for the part you played in someone's story. And in that quiet realization, Emma finally understood. She hadn't just helped Liam heal. He had helped her remember how to live. End of story.